Armoured Protection. Vulnerability is seen as a dark emotion in today's world, an emotion that should not be portrayed, let alone embraced. At some point in our lives, possibly every minute of every day, we all feel vulnerable. To prevent negative reaction to our vulnerability, each morning we protect ourselves with armour. This armour not only hides our vulnerability, but is also meant to make us feel stronger and more in control. In fact, the armour only serves to keep the vulnerability inside, weighing us down, and, because of the unhappiness it brings, it makes us heavy-hearted, slowly and methodically eating away at our psyche. To deal with the grief, the pain and the despair, we numb the vulnerability, but as vulnerability is the centre of our emotions, that also means that we can't feel love, we can't feel joy, and we can't feel empathy. Basic human connections that we all crave, but instead of living those emotions wholeheartedly, we live our lives hard-heartedly, protected but empty, alone and even more vulnerable. The armour is the only thing that is keeping us standing, literally. It might take a professional eye or a friend who has successfully embraced vulnerability to see past the armour and make you aware of your helplessness. At that moment, you have a choice to continue to hide and numb your susceptibility, or have the courage to be imperfect, to recognize and embrace your vulnerability, exposing it to the harsh, cold, and unsympathetic outside world. When I went to see the company doctor, I was wearing a full suit of armour, from head to toe. Concerned about his bias towards work, and even though physically I was feeling more settled, the only chink in my armour was around my eyes. Even though I didn't want to show it and didn't have a name for it, I was feeling very vulnerable. Thankfully, the doctor saw everything through that tiny gap, recognized the deep-rooted anxiety that my eyes couldn't hide, and he highlighted his concerns about my psychological vulnerability. Ironically, given the precautions I'd taken to conceal it, my shock and disbelief was palpable. 3 months later, my counsellor seized the opportunity provided by my positive cardiology report and advised me to accept the vulnerability that had already been recognised, to challenge it, to face it, to embrace it, and use its power as a driving force in my recovery. When I was faced with this ultimatum, my hands were tied and the decision predetermined. Either I continued to hide my vulnerability, all its darkness, and suffer from escalating symptoms, or follow the medical advice, remove my armour, become unstable, expose my vulnerability, change my path, and reconnect to love, joy, and empathy. It was that moment that changed my destiny. Every step I took, every peak I reached, every obstacle I overcame, every battle I won, every setback I endured, and every inch of progress was fueled by the very thing that held me back for so long. And because I had embraced my vulnerability, I was able to recognize and empathize with others, to relate to their vulnerability, and to let my vulnerable self be seen. The release allowed me to start to love wholeheartedly without strings, certainty, or guarantee in a way I've never loved before, to feel deep joy, a lightness and infinite gratitude. The choice to expose your vulnerability to a world that has other priorities is not an easy one to make. There is danger that others will misinterpret your bravery and strength for the exact opposite. Others may become upset and concerned by the previously hidden challenges that you reveal. Take it from someone who has successfully hidden my vulnerability from even the closest members of my family for 47 of my 53 years. The definite positives far outweigh the perceived negatives. Expose your vulnerabilities. Be heard. Seek the help that is available. Make changes to your life, either psychologically, physically, or environmentally, to alleviate and challenge your difficulties. Peel away the armour and feel your body breathe and live again, wholeheartedly.